This is a video where I'm going to talk about the overall process of IPA. There are other videos where I talk about why to do it, or what its distinctive features are, or different coding strategies you can use. This is about the overall process of working with data. So I'm assuming that you've got data, it's suitable and appropriate data, and that you want to think about the big picture. What is the process going to be like? What are you going to be doing? The process as I describe it here is the one that we've adapted and changed some terminology for the forthcoming second edition of the IPA book. So it's a product of a collaboration between Jonathan Smith, Paul Flowers and myself, where we've been working on some shared data analysis together and thinking about the needs of IPA researchers and about our own commonalities of practice, and trying to give those things clear and consistent names. So it might look a little different from some other IPA process accounts that you've seen. It doesn't make those other process accounts redundant. It just provides a sort of a more generic description, if you like, of those, and one that we think will be helpful. So what you can see on screen at the moment are the first two phases. And down the middle column, there's the general sense of what's happening in each phase. So phase one is working with a single transcript towards experiential statements. So that's what we're calling the summary statements that you make that bring your exploratory coding together around key meanings for the participant. I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. In phase two, you're working towards case level summaries. So you're working towards producing a case level summary for the case that you're working on. And we're calling these personal experiential themes. So they're themes with an experiential focus at the level of each case or each person. And then as we scroll down, you should be able to see phase three. So this would be once you'd completed the case level summary for each case, then you can start to look across themes and begin to think about cross-case themes. And we would call these group experiential themes. So these are the themes that cut across the sample. And then finally, you would begin working towards a linear account of the thematic structure, which you can present in narrative form and talk a reader through in a journal paper, in a thesis, or in a conference talk. So these are the main steps in the process, and what we've tried to do in this document is talk about them in both technical and non-technical language. So focusing again on that first stage, the working towards experiential statements. You're getting to know the data, you're getting to know your own interests and preconceptions through a reflexive reading of that data. So you're noticing your reactions to it and what interests you about it. You're conducting detailed exploratory analysis, annotation of the transcript, to notice the important things for the participant, the important meanings that those things have, and the important ways that the participant talks about them. I've spoken about example coding strategies in another video, but this is where you're doing your detailed line-by-line work. And then you're summarizing those in what we're calling here experiential statements. So each one of these statements is a statement that articulates the main claim you're making about the meaning of a person's experience around a particular phenomena, a particular thing that matters to them. So these are what in the earlier versions of the account of IPA process you might have called an emerging theme. It's not a fully finished theme, it isn't cross-cutting at this stage, but it's a distillation or a consolidation of a key idea for the participant. Once you've done that and you've exhausted all of the depth within your data, then you can work towards capturing that, crystallizing that in a case level summary for that case. So this is where we move on to phase two, steps 4 and 5, where you're organizing the work that you've done around the main claims, the main experiential statements, and you're beginning to cluster those statements together and think about candidates for themes at the case level. You're likely to add some supplementary notes and reflections at this stage, thinking about, again, what struck you as important at the beginning, what strikes you as important now, what preconceptions and interests of your own you may need to manage, what interpretive observations you begin to develop when you begin to think about how different elements of the participants' concerns and the way that you've summarized them in the statements, how those fit together and how you might make sense of them. Out of this, you begin to develop, at the case level, person experiential themes, or as we've been calling them, PETs. So these are cross-cutting at the case level. You might have too many of these to report in a paper, and that's okay, because you're going to when you look across cases and produce group experiential themes, you're going to lose some detail in favour of those things which best account for the variance within the data sample as a whole. But you can certainly have sub-themes. You should be able to capture and link your main analytic ideas to data extracts and key examples of the things that you're interested in. You might include reflections and observations on things like the use of language, the relationship with the interviewer, the kinds of metaphor and imagery that are drawn upon, the sorts of stories that are told and the ways that they're told. So lots of things that you can bring into that level of analysis. It should be easier to scan in its summary form than the whole annotated transcript. So you're aiming for something that is easier to navigate, that is a consolidation of your work so far, and that you can return to in an accessible, usable way. Often it might look like a table or a structured list of clusters with supporting material linked to each set of statements that seem to belong together, that seem to be a candidate for a person experiential theme. So you're likely to be recycling through phase 1 and phase 2 for quite a while, because a key component of IPA work is producing this kind of case level analysis. So you're not going to start thinking about the cross case work until you've done a case level summary for each participant. Once you have done that, then that's the next stage, thinking about patterns across cases. Again, this is often done by reviewing the case level summaries, thinking about potential candidates for themes which might cut across the cases, or which might bring your existing person experiential themes together around a new formulation or concept that makes sense of a particular pattern within the cases. So just as with at the person level, at the group level, you're shuffling, you're sorting, you're reflecting, you're introducing further interpretation and conceptualization, and you're trying to think about what goes with what and how best to make sense of it in a way that reflects participants' concerns and the meanings that they attribute to them. And this is where IPA often benefits from being a social process. So you're likely to review this work with supervisors, with peer researchers, with advisory groups, in order to think about how to develop it, refine it, get it right, get the things named in ways which properly evoke the meanings that you are trying to write about and talk about. The final stage really begins once you've finalized that structure. That's when you can begin thinking about how to use that structure for writing up each part of the work, how you can use your person experiential themes to identify quotes which support each of the main group experiential themes, how you can produce a writing plan which will give you opportunities to reflect on the main commonalities within the cases, the shared concerns, the way that they converge around these main group experiential themes, but also those features of the data which are about context, individual variation, the different ways that sometimes meanings which are shared might play out for different people in different situations and so on. You want space for that level of ideographic granularity in the write-up. And so thinking carefully about how to blend the focus with convergence, with the opportunities to speak about particularity and divergence is important, and that's again where supervisors, research team, advisory group can be really helpful, thinking about how you plan and structure the story of all of this work.